Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Niconomics, a show for entrepreneurs, wantrepreneurs, and searchers who are just trying to figure it out. This week took a turn. It was so much fun. We had Pam Colin first, who's trying to estimate the total number of luxury, vintage, and exotic cars in a market. So that was just a fun mental exercise to go through. Next, we had Collin. Joss is pivoting in his global management company. So he actually outsources services to companies and he's focusing on home services, specifically client facing roles. So we talked through how he might pivot in that space. Next, we had Michael, who's a serial entrepreneur in Southern California. And due to some changing regulations with the way that planes fly into LAX, his home is now able to be a billboard on the roof. So he's thinking through how to monetize that. And then last, we had Pam Colin, who's the VP of High Magazine. I think you can figure out what they sell. As she describes it, it's a magazine dedicated to redefining the 21st century cannabis user. So, yes, it is a high magazine. Freaking fascinating conversation. Look, please do me a favor. This is the part where I shamelessly ask for you to not only subscribe, please leave me some feedback. I've been doing this now. This is my 6th week. I think it's getting better every week, but I just want to know whether or not you think it's getting better because, frankly, I don't have a lot of feedback on this stuff. So if you would please take the time to give me some feedback, I would greatly appreciate that. So with that, let's hop into the show. We're going to get started with this party with Brian. What's up, Brian?
We made it.
We did it. Somehow we did it. How are you?
I'm having a great day.
Remind me where you're calling from.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You and I have interacted a number of times on social media, but I don't think I've ever spoken to you.
No, we've never met.
This is exciting for me. I'm on the other side of saying first time, long time.
Yeah.
I've never called into a radio show before, but I've always wanted to call in and just be like, hey, first time, long time. Let's see if anybody notices, but we'll see.
The guy last week said it and it made me laugh. So
It's awesome. So you asked a really interesting question and I'm going to let you set the context for it. Why don't you go ahead and jump right into it?
So question is, how do you figure out how many vintage and or call it sports, expensive, exotic type cars are in a given geographic region, right? Because it's not publicly available type of information that you could pretty easily find out.
Maybe. That's why I wanted to dive into it a little bit with you because I do think there's a way to find it out, but we'll start. What are you trying to do? If you're willing to share, what are you trying to use the data for?
We do a bunch of vintage car racing, and the shop we use is about 20 minutes, 15 miles away, and it takes time to get back and forth. So it is a challenge to get a car up there, a car back. You want to go pick something up. You want to go talk to them about something they need you to look at. And additionally, vintage car, nice car storage is hard to find. And it's usually in bad areas. And near me, one of the spots, I have a friend who was storing some cars at a spot in a place called Etna, and you can look this up. The place burned.
Jeez.
So he lost 8 cars in the place catching fire.
That's terrible.
And so there's a market, I think, for higher end car storage and service, and the ability being that the service and the storage are right next to each other. They're not two different places. So when you stop by, you can say, hey, Nick, your car is ready. And when you come back next week, we'll fix whatever it is that happened on your Saturday drive and it'll be ready for you.
Yeah.
And I think there's a clientele that would buy into that. And so I'm looking for space. And part of the thing figuring out is, okay, what is a 10 by 20 rent for? All these things you can figure out. But it's hard to figure out the demand side of the equation. How much volume of cars is there in somebody's garage?
Okay, well, that's helpful. So the first place I would start is I actually love these thought exercises. It reminds me, have you ever heard of those consulting interviews where they're like, how many toilets are there in San Francisco? And then they work through, okay, well, there's this many people and they have an estimate. And it's for them, it's less about whether they get to the right number and more about. So the first place I would start is look at your local DMV and see whether or not there's any public records that you can request. There are FOIA requests. Those are federal records requests.
Yeah, I know.
But many local, state, and governments have the ability to give you those records. It's just like an arcane process to go through and request. So you may have already researched it and been like, yeah, DMV doesn't give those records. So, okay. Another thing
No, I'm super lazy. I only use the internet.
Well, just go look at the DMV, even call them and just say, hey, I'm looking for this, for registration of vehicles in this area. Because they're tracking it. They have it. I just don't know if they're willing to give it out. The second lazy thing that I would do is I would post to Upwork. You ever messed with Upwork?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would post to Upwork
Yeah,
and say, yeah, just say exactly what you're looking for. It's amazing the lists that people have that they've scraped for other things that they just like continually resell. So I would be surprised if there wasn't somebody who had some type of a list that had the registration of vehicles in a certain geographic area. The third thing I would do, well, so those are like searching things. I would try to narrow down. Your question was exotic, luxury cars. There might have even been a third criteria. I
vintage.
think vintage. Yeah. So exotic, vintage, and luxury are all different categories. So are you looking for one specific category, or are they truly all?
The guy who owns one might own one of the other two as well.
Okay.
Because the customer
And
you're seeking is not somebody who owns one car and has space for it necessarily. You're seeking a guy who owns three cars and has space for one, and he wants to put the other two somewhere.
yeah. So the other thing I would do, this is the part that's more the estimation part that I actually like to do. I like ratios. So I would take a look. I'm sure there's got to be some information online about the estimated number of cars in each one of those categories in the United States. And just a really quick and dirty number would be, all right, how many people live in the United States? What's the ratio of these types of cars to person? This is how many people live in this geographic area. Therefore, there are this many cars. That's a really quick and dirty way to do it. But then you can get more granular with it. You can say, all right, I'm assuming everybody who makes under $250,000 or $500,000 a year doesn't have one of these cars. So now I'm going to ratchet it up and say, what's the population in the United States of people making over $250,000 a year? Then I would do the same ratio, cars divided by that. And then you get like a number of cars per person. And then look in your predefined geographic area. This stuff's really easy to find. And then multiply that ratio by the number of those demographic people. I don't know what the right word to use there is. So that's
That
another
makes
way.
sense.
Yeah.
Painfully
That's,
obvious.
I don't know about painfully obvious, but it does make sense.
Once you say it, it becomes painfully obvious. It's like, oh, of course.
Well, so I did this when I started my home health and hospice. I wanted to know what was the total addressable market in Boise and what was the competition like. So I pulled all the Medicare data because Medicare publishes this stuff. I said, how many providers are there in every state? And then I did how many Medicare beneficiaries are there in every state? And then I did a rough ratio. I looked in Idaho and I said, okay, based on the ratio of Medicare beneficiaries to providers, the higher the number of beneficiaries to providers, the less competition there is. And Idaho ended up being like the fifth most competitive state in the country. Utah was like number one. But I had to back into that. And I ended up being right with it. But you just have to pull from a couple different data sets. The other thing I'd recommend you do is take a look in your area. I would bet money there are Facebook groups, Instagram groups, like just Pittsburgh vintage car guys, and just see how many members there are in those groups in your area.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you can do if you want to get even more granular is you can scrape the number of shops in the United States. And now you're not just looking for like auto body shops, you're looking for those, and I'm like way out of my depth here, European auto
Specialty
body or
shops.
specialty shops. There
You're
you go.
looking for like a specialty shop, foreign auto
Yeah.
repair shop.
So I would, again, go to Upwork, ask for a list of, okay, I'm looking for specialty exotic car shops in the United States with their addresses. Someone provides that list to you, and then you can do the same type of analysis. You take the population and then you overlay where the shops are, and you get this map that will heat map, if you will, that shows you like, oh, Pittsburgh has a ton of these shops per capita, whereas Wichita, Kansas has like very few. There must be more exotic cars in this area than Wichita, Kansas. So that's another way I would feel it out. The third way is not really analytical. It's more testing. Chris's exceptional at this and you're an entrepreneur, so this would be second hat to you, I would post something. I would just like, hey, either pretend like it's a pretend listing for this, or go to these Facebook groups and just ask, would anybody use this service? That's going to be like first person anecdotal research, but that I would go there as well.
What's the guy Spencer with the trash truck? That's what he did.
Oh, did he?
Everybody sign up, and then I'll buy the trash truck.
It's not a bad method. Chris has done that a number of times with businesses where he's
brilliant to say, everybody, let me verify that there's a market first, and then spend money.
Yeah, Chris did this with, or maybe he was talking about doing it with trailers. So like behind whatever U-Haul stuff with trailers, where he's posted it. And again, I can't remember if he did it or if he was saying he was going to do it. I'm going to pretend he did it. He posted it and said, hey, I've got this trailer for rent. And then when people reached out and said, yep, I've got a trailer, he didn't have a trailer. He's like, okay, worst case scenario, I'll just go rent a trailer and be the middleman. But at least I'm testing the demand for this service. Now I remember it was in one of his newsletters, I think he sent out. But
there's a guy who does that already, and those two have been talking about it.
Oh, really? Okay. By osmosis, I knew I had seen it and read it somewhere, but yeah, I think
way too much.
Same, but I think those are some decent strategies to get you started to measure demand.
The other thing that you kicked into my head is I actually know a guy in an insurance company that I could ask him for some ideas of, what do you see?
Dude, that's it. What kind of insurance?
Auto insurance.
Dude, that's a great, if you have that, I don't know if you'd be willing to share.
Not like the agent selling me the insurance. I know a guy at the insurance company. So
that's even better. That's even better, because what I would ask him is, you don't have to tell me who the people are.
I don't want to know who they are.
Tell me two things. How many insured vehicles do you have that fit this criteria? Cool. And then tell me what percentage of the market you own in the car insurance space. Then you can back in, and you can, Chris and I like to do this where we do 3 of these methods and then we lay them over the top and we're like, okay, that makes sense. Like when we launched our tree trimming business, we did some research on the internet. We were like, oh, okay, the tree trimming industry is 40 billion. In the Texas market, Dallas is 2% of the total population. Therefore, this should be an $800 million industry in Dallas. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Then we went and pulled all of the tree trimming companies in Dallas and compared that to the ratio of tree trimming companies across the United States, again, using that total addressable market of $40 billion. And the ratio was like 1 to every 10,000 or something like that. And it checked out. They were close enough where it's, okay, we've got a good picture of the market demand so we can move forward. You're never going to get a perfect picture, but I think you can back into a really good estimate that way.
Right. The biggest challenge I bet I run into is finding the right kind of space for the right price.
Yeah, that's step 2. You probably want to, you probably want to find someone who'd be willing to rent the space, or I don't know, but a shop that has excess space or not demand, but excess real estate.
I think what I have to find is worth Chris of Pittsburgh, who can find me Class B industrial that is underutilized.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be in a Class C type of environment, because then somebody doesn't want to drive their $500,000 car to where you are.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. But you could also have a concierge service, right? Where you go to their house, pick up the car, take it to the shop.
You could, but the amount of labor and risk you take in doing that. There was a guy that wrecked there's a group out of Europe who they restore vintage cars, and they were taking a Ferrari F40 to a car show, and they let the 24-year-old kid drive it over because it was only 12 miles.
Oh my
Sure
gosh.
enough, there's pictures on the internet of that thing spinning through the tunnel and banging off the walls, and you're like,
oh my gosh,
that's not worth the risk for a $3 million car.
No, it's not worth the risk. Well, this space way better than I do. I'm just thinking out loud, but I test the demand first, and then you can worry about finding other space.
Yeah, I like the idea. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Well, it's great to have you, man. It was great to meet you. Let me know how it goes.
I'll sign on for the rest of the show.
All right, man. We'll see you later.
Thank you. See ya.
Yep. Joss. Am I saying your name right?
Going?
It's good, man. How are you?
I usually say it like the genre of music.
Smooth jazz. with
That's the way.
jazz.
That's the easiest way to tell it.
Dude, it's great to meet you, man. I know you and I have exchanged DMs a number of times. You're in the growth group. You're relaunching
100%,
your Twitter profile.
100%, 100%.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, new profile, just restarting here from scratch, taking a page out of Chris's playbook.
have you ever heard that story, by the way?
The crypto one?
Yeah.
I haven't heard the story, but I like know the gist of it, that he had to like restart or something.
So yeah, for people who don't know, Chris, my business partner, mobile home park guy, had another account. In fact, if you search him on Twitter, its co-founder is Chris Kerner, and he grew that account to 70,000 followers. But it was built off of crypto, and it was like at the height of crypto crashes, and just that there were a ton of bots left over, and all of a sudden he started noticing his engagement sucked. He's, I don't get it. My posts are not doing well. And he talked to somebody else, and they're like, well, just nuke it, start a new account. And so that was 2.5 years ago, I think. And so he started Mobile Home Park Guy, September
Yeah,
of
I'm
2021.
I'm there now. I'm there now with my new account, because I actually started my old account in kind of the AI niche last year. So grew that with like growth hacking and all this stuff to like almost 40,000 followers.
Yeah,
But then when I made like a switch into talking like about personal stuff, so that wasn't getting the same traction. So I was like, okay, whatever, let's just start anew.
All right. So you started in AI, but you have a company currently that does what?
Yes, the question is regarding that company, so I'll get into the context
Sure.
regarding that. Yeah, my question is like, how do you go about standing out in a super saturated market and go about getting in touch with like your ICP in this case, is what my question is. And the company that I'm currently running, so my co-founder actually, so he started a company like about over a year ago, called Hire Super Talent. And a few months ago, he saw me through my old account, and we exchanged some thoughts. He thought it would be the right move to bring me on the team. So I've been running the company for the past few months now. It started out as like more of just like a competitor to Athena. So like executive hiring, specifically executive assistants. We decided that, hey, that's really generic, and we should, with so much competition and everything, with other competitors in the market coming in, we should probably hone in somehow. And he has a background in the home services space.
Okay.
So right now we're going through a pivot here to pivot the company into more customer facing roles for home service companies. So that's what we're now
So
really pivoting the company towards.
when you say pivoting into customer facing, what does that mean?
So that means like roles such as sales, like inside sales rep, customer service, dispatch, and support. So usually roles that would be on the phone or have to talk to customers more often than not.
Okay, so let me just recap. You had a buddy, or you have a buddy. He has a
Yeah.
company that does global talent. Is it staffing or is it placement?
It's staffing.
Okay, so he does the virtual assistant, global talent staffing. He brought you on
Yeah.
Is it operational or is it business development?
As more operational.
Okay, so he brought you on operational, and it's focused on home services, and B, you're pivoting to focus on customer facing roles within the home services sector. Did I nail that?
So before it was more just generic virtual assistants, right? So almost every role in every industry. And now we are pivoting towards customer facing and home services.
Okay. So that's the business you got going on, but you're also active on Twitter and social media, building an audience as a distribution channel. Is that
less of a distribution channel? Like I'm not really trying to like, okay, if business comes from Twitter, sure, like 100% we'll take it, but we're not really trying to build a company on Twitter, because we know that most of our ICPs are not living on Twitter. And the market on Twitter is already super saturated. And that's at least what my thought process is. And which is where my question comes in, is how do you get in touch with your ICP in this case, who is more blue collar, more traditional America? And
And so, because your question was two-part. Hey, I want to rebuild my Twitter presence, but you're not looking to leverage that Twitter presence into getting into these niches, or are you?
Yeah, no, like that Twitter presence is more of, I wouldn't say on the side, but it's more like personally in the last year of me building a Twitter presence, I just think it's expanded like the surface area of luck for myself. And so the Twitter presence is for maybe future ventures, or maybe using a little bit of it to bring some customers on, but it's nothing, it doesn't need to be a main distribution channel for this service.
Okay. Where do you live?
I'm currently in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's in Canada here.
Winnipeg, Manitoba. Okay. What made you pivot to home services? Is this a theory or is there something that is driving it?
Yeah, so actually, the reason that the company started in the first place was because my co-founder has built a eight-figure revenue company in the home services niche. And so he has previous experience with it. And so to get more profitable, he basically built out like a 50 plus people team for his company. And then so once he saw the benefits coming from it, that's when he spun it off into a separate company called Hire Super Talent. And so because we have previous kind of experience in that niche, or he had, so we can leverage his experience and connections in the industry to like whether it's do like initial customer feedback surveys and so on and so forth.
What do you mind sharing what type of home services business it is?
Yeah, it's mobile brake repair. Yeah.
So I would recommend going out and testing this theory a little more.
Mm-hmm.
I would reach out to some home services providers across the spectrum, window washers, HVAC companies, electricians, plumbers, and just say, hey, I want to get to know your demographic better. I have this company that does staffing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I shadow you for a day? Or do you mind if I place somebody for you for free? And then get some feedback there, because you're asking the question like, where do I find my ideal customer?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you've been in their shoes across the spectrum, it's just hard to know where they're hanging out. If they're not on Twitter, where are they? On Facebook, maybe? Potentially. Are you going to have to send mailers out? You may have to send mailers out. You may have to go knock doors. You may have to get their text information and then mass text them. Go to Outscraper and get some information on local businesses. But until you know where they're hanging out, it's hard to tell you to do a strategy. So I would go and test by offering some free services and just getting information from some of these home service brands across the spectrum.
Yeah, and so currently to do that, currently what I am doing is I'm like so I'm going to Apollo and finding emails that of
Okay.
existing home service businesses. And so really cool, like taking the angle of hey, I'm this 23-year-old starting this staffing
Yeah.
agency in the home services niche. Love what you're doing with blank. Would love to just get on a 7-minute call just to ask you a few open-ended questions regarding this. And so I'm doing that currently and been
What's
doing that
your
for about this.
tell me
Go
your
ahead.
response? What's your response rate?
Yeah, like I would say that's what has been the biggest issue for me is I haven't really been getting any responses to that.
I think you need to change your pitch. It's good. Hey, I'm 23 and there are good-hearted people out there, but you need to have some dollar amount that catches their attention. These small businesses have really slim margins. And so
Mhm.
maybe you could throw something there. Hey, I'm 23. I'm testing this idea. I think I can save the typical home services business $50,000 a year. Would you mind hopping
Mhm.
on a call with me and letting me demo this for you for 2 months? Make that offer and tweak it. Like you can test the message,
Yeah.
but if you're not getting a good response rate, then you have bad data or you have a bad message. So
And
it's one of the two.
what would you recommend? And so what would you recommend is a feasible testing size for, let's say, testing one copy versus another?
Have you ever A/B tested, or do you use any software systems that use A/B testing?
Well, we were recently using smart leads. Right now, I've switched to now doing like more manually, but yeah.
Yeah, Chris is my business partner is the genius at this, but Klaviyo has some options where you can send an email campaign to a certain list and A/B test it just to see which responses are actually are performing better. It depends
Mhm.
also how big your list is. Like how big of a list are you using? If you're using
So
50 or are you using 5,000?
yeah, I've scraped a list from ListKit and the home service providers in terms of CEOs and VP of sales and marketing. I've gotten about I would say 1,200 ish
Okay.
people on a list. So that's the number that I have currently.
Okay. I would start A/B testing with 50 at a time
Okay.
and just see what the percentages are. And then as you start dialing it in, then maybe up it to 75 and then roll it all. You don't want to just mass everybody because you haven't
Mhm.
refined your message yet.
Yeah. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, no, that sounds great. That sounds great. So I'll start doing that. And then in terms of kind of more of the Twitter strategy, and well, I'm really just trying to, the goal with Twitter here isn't like I would say one particular business or anything like that. I'm intrigued by, I would say, home services again, but the reason being is I can easily, especially in Winnipeg here, I would say it's like pretty low competition, whether it's like SEO or anything like that. But we do have a population of about 800K people. So I'm intrigued because I'm able to use strategies from other people, whether it's on Twitter or like friends that I make it locally, and not copy paste, but like really take inspiration from it, I guess you can say, in the future. So that's where I stand with the Twitter thing, is currently building kind of a following in the home services niche. And what I've been doing is sharing like other operator stories and how they got there.
I think you have a superpower. You're young, you're smart, and you're savvy on Twitter. Like you post engaging things. You're starting
Hmm.
over again, and your posts have been outperforming, or as Chris says, outkicking your coverage, right? Like you're doing
Yeah.
better than you should be doing at your size. I would
Yeah.
lean in. I would lean into it, and I like what you wrote to me, and I would just, hey, I'm the home services interview guy.
Yeah.
You just build trust with people that you're asking questions, you're being curious, you're trying to understand the space and the industry. Don't have an agenda. That is going to
Yeah.
build you. That's going to build you a massive network, and it's going to
Hmm.
allow you to leverage that niche later. So
Yeah.
I would totally lean into that strategy, and you could even use it locally, right? Like you could interview somebody and post it to Twitter. That's not
Yeah.
on Twitter, right? You're just the guy who goes around and tries to understand how these local home services businesses are functioning. So I think lean into it. If you have the time, if you have the energy, and if you have the skill, and you do, go for it. You should lean into that content creation.
Yeah, the thought process here is, let's say I do 300, 400 interviews or something like that over a span of whatever, like 2 years or something. And then I'm able to come back and be like, okay, out of these 300, 400 different types of businesses at different scales, which one did I like the most? Which one was I most intrigued by? The numbers made sense for which one because they're disclosing the numbers to me. And basically reverse work myself, go back from there and be like, okay,
But
go ahead.
everybody wants to do that. Everybody
Yeah,
wants to go do the research, right? They want to, what business is right for me? And they're going to ask the questions. They'd love to do that. If you have the luxury of being able to do that, you are
yeah,
going to get people who follow you just because you're doing the thing that they want to do. And so you're giving them
yeah.
answers to the questions that they want answered. So I would lean into it. You already have a natural curiosity for that, and you have an
Mhm.
ability to write compelling content. You should
Yeah,
do that. You should, like,
yeah.
yes, that will be that will be an outcome, that you'll get a lot of information, but it will also be attractive to a lot of people.
Yeah, and like another kind of like spin-off to that was like there could be a possibility of like a starter story,
Sure.
like another version of starter story, which I found intriguing. But
I think all the opportunities are going to open up to you, but if you follow your curiosity,
mhm,
you will find them along the way. You don't have to have a plan right now in place to
yeah,
figure out how you're going to leverage it. You follow your
mhm.
curiosity, people will follow you, and I think that will be a really fun journey.
Perfect. Thank you, thank you.
Cool.
I think I'm pretty good. Thank you.
Okay, man. It was nice to meet you.
Okay, thank you, brother. Nice to meet
All
you as
right.
well.
Have a good one. So, we had an interesting question this week from somebody who wasn't able to actually join us. His name is Jake. And his question was, how would you approach a financial stack for your first business acquisition? I think what he's asking is equity stack. Let's say the price is 500,000. How would you approach traditional loans versus raising money versus your own investment? That's a great question, and one that I actually couldn't wait to answer because I've been in this situation before. So my first sort of distinction is traditional loans being two types: SBA and conventional, raising money, and then your own investment. So whether or not you have the actual cash to put into these businesses. First and foremost, I think if you can finance, you should finance. So unless there is a reason that I don't know or understand, there's no reason for you to pay all cash for a business like this. You should finance it. The second thing is it's similar to what I've done in the past. So I'm going to go through like an example that I've personally done with a business and hopefully give you, Jake, some context to then go off of as you are crafting your own equity stack. So I bought a business, and these are pretty high, but it's an actual situation, but these are fake numbers. So the business cost $300,000, or excuse me, $3 million to purchase. I had just sold my home, and so I had some money to put down on the business. I found this business, I negotiated this business, I lined up the financing, I personally guaranteed it, everything. So from my perspective, I was going to get 60% of the business either way because I did all of the work up front to set it up for success. I then gave 10% to an operator who ran the day to day, And I needed to find a down payment of $150,000 to buy this business. So I went through the SBA. Now I had two options. I could have gone conventional, but conventional loans are going to require 20% down and then collateral in order to collateralize the loan. I didn't have 20% down. That would have been $600,000. And I did not have the collateral to collateralize it. So I went to the SBA, which is a wonderful program. And not only does the SBA require only 10%, but in certain circumstances, if you're able to structure the seller note the right way, you can actually get away with 5%, which I did. I got away with putting down 5%. So I needed to come up with $150,000. Well, easy peasy. I was able to come up with half of that, $75,000. And then I went out and raised the other $75,000 from people that I knew. So as you remember, I had taken 60%, 10% was given to an operator. I still had an additional 30% to divvy up. And I put my $75,000 in. So my equity stake went up to 75%, I believe was the number. And the other 15% was given to the individuals who actually put capital into the deal. Now, that doesn't mean you should do the deal that way. Some people do it where they say, oh, it was $3 million and you're putting in, let's just say, $75,000. Well, $75,000 is actually 2.5% of the total deal. So you can have 2.5% of the company. Now, I said $75,000, I need that to close. I'm willing to give 15% of the company. So in that instance, I gave away way too much equity. There are other mechanisms that you could do. You could get a debt instrument where you just pay a preferred return and you say, hey, look, take my money, or excuse me, let me take your money. I'll invest it in this business. You can use the business as collateral. It's making $150,000 a year, whatever the net income is. And I will pay you a guaranteed 10% a year on your money. And at some point, you'll get that money back. So they get what's called a preferred return back to them. You can also have a participating preferred return where you say, you'll get 10% equity and I'll give you a 10% preferred return. So they're getting preferred return and then they also participate in the equity upside. So there's a number of different ways that you can skin this cat. But if you're going the raising money route, I would recommend being creative with the way that you're structuring it. The deal specifics that you gave me was a $500,000 deal, and I've got it written down here. $500,000. I'm assuming here a 3 to 5x multiple. So let's just say the EBITDA on this business is $150,000. So you have a couple of options. Option number one, you can pay all cash. Don't do that. You should finance it. Option number two, you could go out and raise money to buy it, either all cash or the down payment. Option number three, you go and actually get a loan. So you can get a conventional loan, in which case you'd have to come up with $100,000 and have it collateralized, or you can go through the SBA and have a $50,000 required down payment. Potentially get it down to $25,000. So if I were you, I would go the SBA route, personally guarantee it. $500,000 is not a crazy amount of money, and hopefully it's not going to bankrupt you. But go through the SBA, put $50,000 down, buy this business, and then use the cash flows of that business to either fund your lifestyle, buy another business, etc. If you don't have the $50,000 down payment, then what I would do is I would do everything I just said, but I would give away probably in the range of 10 to 20% equity. You're going to want to keep it less than 20% to anybody that you give equity to, because otherwise they are going to have to personally guarantee it. And if they're personally guaranteeing it, then, I would want more equity if I'm personally guaranteeing anything. So I would say, hey, I need $50,000. For $50,000, I'm going to give you 15% of this company. It's currently worth $500,000. So you're already walking into $25,000 worth of equity. If you were to go pay it off and resell it, it's probably fairly healthy doing $150,000 a year. But I would try to identify somebody who you think is going to add value to this business as opposed to just provide capital. It's not, in my mind, it's not a big enough capital amount where you can't be picky, if that makes sense. If it was a huge capital amount, you have less options. But $50,000 is going to be fairly easy to go out and raise. So you're going to want to target somebody who could help with the business, either with their technical skills, who could help hold you accountable, who would be maybe a partner to you if you were to expand. But think through who the ideal investor would be and tailor it in a way where they're getting less than 20% equity to help you close this business. So hope that makes sense. Hope that answered your question. And if you have any other thoughts, shoot me a message. Michael, how are you, sir?
Good.
So, dude, tell me about this building that you have in LA. You said it.
Yeah, so it's technically not a building, but it is a very
Okay.
unique value proposition. So where I stand or where I sit is a mobile home, okay? And what exists in California are mobile home parks run by the Department
Hmm.
of Health and Safety because they're basically a community where you get to lease the land. Well, my family is in a
Right.
fortunate position where we bought this property in 2008 through a seller financed loan, which gave us rights and titles to a 1988 lease that was then extended in 2012 to 2032,
Wow.
which all prevailing rates stay the same, which we are well below fair market value as indicated by the current sales and what other people are paying for rent. And I
Hmm.
intend to use that to
Hmm.
my advantage and leverage that through either a private sale.
Now, do you have a mobile home?
Yeah,
You have a mobile home, or you have a mobile home park? Okay.
a mobile home. But
Okay.
considering my location, there is also some ancillary benefits. And those ancillary benefits
Hmm.
include potential advertising on my roof, which I need to check to see if is available to me, which I think it is, which coincides
Hmm.
with the recent flight path change to LAX, which is now over my house and cruising at a altitude of about 5,000 feet. So you can definitely see
Yeah.
whatever
You could definitely see your
advertising.
roof. Yeah.
So I'm
Really?
looking for somebody in the interesting creative financing space with alternative opportunities.
How would that? So, how would that work? You would sell the mobile home, but maintain the ground rights?
It comes with the ground rights. So I
Oh, it
would,
comes with the ground rights.
yeah, I would sell the mobile home with the ground rights, and then I would lease it back um,
Mm.
from the buyer for a defined amount, and then share in the advertising expense or advertising revenue.
So it's almost like a cash out refi of your house.
Correct.
If you were to go and do a cash out refi, except the party that's providing liquidity is not a bank. You're looking for a third party who would actually share.
Correct.
And why look for a third party? Why not? Couldn't you go to a bank and do this?
No, because banks don't like mobile homes are very hard to
Mm.
finance
Okay.
and are often seller financed. The other option available to me is to sell this at a discount and then hold a note on the property for the buyer, and then I become my own hard money lender to mobile home parks.
Why not just sell the property, cash out, and go somewhere else? Why stay with the lease back and split revenue or why not don't sell it and just rent the space on your roof?
Yeah, I can do the latter. That's fine. What I'd like to do is cash out a little bit, but if I do a
Okay.
complete sale, then the lease resets to the fair market value as defined by the terms of a complete sale. But a seller financed, I do not believe would reset the lease because that's why we have been
Okay.
harassed in our park because
Yeah.
they know they have alternative plans for this and they know that our 2032 lease is not coinciding with those plans.
Okay. Okay. I think I'm up to speed now. Here's my question. Do you know how much advertising revenue you could generate from your roof?
I would have to determine the fair market value, of which I have a small estimate because I am also helping publish a magazine to LA County residents, 50,000, to be published
Mm-hmm.
8/1, and that's hiimag.com, HIII mag.com. And
Okay.
we're free to announce.
Please tell me it's affiliated with with a marijuana grow operation.
Correct. It is a cannabis.
Hi. Is it?
It is a cannabis
Yes.
It is a cannabis quarterly that is speaking to the 21st
Awesome.
century green space, okay, in the style of, let's call it
Yeah.
Vogue Rolling Stone with some edge, high quality luxury feel, printed publication with newsletter and digital media presence after the fact. And so we have established pricing and we have been selling that pricing. So now I have pricing to go with my pricing, and we'll see if our advertisers would be interested in renting my roof as a one-off to the publication going out. And hey, maybe we'll just even throw that in for free.
Okay, I have an idea. Here's what I would say. I don't know anything about the sale back, lease back.
Yeah.
Kind of what triggers in the state of California a reset of the fair market value and capital gains and all that stuff. But it's figure outable.
Yeah.
What I would look at is identify what type of revenue you can generate from your advertising on your roof. And then if you're looking to cash out, I would sell your roof space for 10 years, 20 years to a company that owns advertising or billboards, because you can
like
do
Lamar or something.
Net present,
can you imagine
net
that?
present value. Yeah, it'd be crazy. It'd be crazy. But if you can prove like, hey, look, this is going to be worth, I don't know, $200 a month in predictive cash flow. So over the next 30 years, the net present value of that based on a 7% interest rate is $32,000 or $100,000, like whatever the number is. I would back into a number and sell the rights to that. So you can stay, then you don't have to worry about your mobile home park space in the ground.
Yeah. So here's what I did. Because of my background, I did a lease accounting net present value. And so I put in some assumptions. I put in a 2% cap and a $500 a month advertising arbitrage over 10 years. So the net cost, like if I set advertising at $500 and my lease is $500, that's the cost of my net is $500 per cycle of advertising. So I came up with a value of $800,000.
Dude, that could totally be the value. I just don't know that space at all.
Yeah.
You're going to have to look at different comps and see what people are willing to pay. But that's the route I would go if you're locked into this, because you're like, California's great because I can't remember the laws, but I know that, for example, I could sell my house and then to like a child and the basis stays the same for them. I can't remember like the exact rules, but there's like really favorable rules in the state of California. So I would almost not even want to mess with the real estate that you have and just figure out a way to monetize your roof.
I would too, yeah.
Because then you can get to a valuation for your roof, sell that space, and then get the cash out that you're hoping to get.
What would you, okay, so let's do fair market value. What would you pay for an advertisement for co-founders where 500 people fly over my house to an international airport every 15 minutes?
I have no idea. I have no research.
No, right?
It's got to be a lot, right? Like it's got to be very valuable. I just have no idea. But there's got to be like measurable ways or I guess methodologies for calculating this stuff that are pretty market.
I should just call Lamar and say, hey, you want to buy this?
You
want to buy this? And then just give me a royalty. That
I'm
way I don't
serious. I think
that way I don't even have to do anything. I just take a rip.
Yeah. Yeah, because then you don't have to worry about selling your property.
Yeah.
I'm for it. I want to hear how this turns out. I can't wait for the update on this one. That's super interesting.
I'm going to start telling my story through the print magazine and other spaces. And I just wanted to say thank you to my coach, Evil, who she is launching her Sonic brand, which is going out
cool.
very soon. So she's great at creating the voice of your brand. And yeah, I'm excited for things to come.
What's her name?
Evil Legacy. Her email address is by Evil.
Evil Legacy.
Yeah. Cool. So she's got a cool thing coming, and stay tuned. So thank you. I appreciate it. And
awesome, man.
I can't wait to hear from everybody else.
Let's connect again.
Yep.
All right, Michael. Good to see you. You there, Pam?
Yes.
Where are you calling from?
I'm in Frogtown in LA.
Frogtown? What is Frogtown?
It's the LA River, halfway between the Hollywood sign and downtown.
Okay. I went to USC, so I do know downtown LA, but I've never heard of Frogtown.
Yeah, no, it's great.
It's the place. It's the place to be. All right. Hi Magazine. When do you guys launch?
We launch August 1st, 2024.
Tell me about the magazine. So Hi Magazine, Your mission is to redefine
cannabis
what
users.
a cannabis user in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Through what? You're telling stories? Are you selling products? Or like what exactly is the magazine?
Yeah, all of the above. It's a lifestyle magazine for all ages, and just there are so many things that are interesting around cannabis these days. From just the politics of cannabis, which are huge right now, with hopefully soon to be rescheduled from a heroin adjacent drug down to one that is more reasonable schedule, which the pharmaceutical industry is very upset.
Are you talking about federally that's in the works?
It is in the works, and there's rumors that Biden will do it, but we'll see.
Does lowering the schedule decriminalize it, or does that still need to take an act of Congress?
It doesn't completely decriminalize it, but it does make it so that it's treated as a substance that has a medicinal value. And currently it's just scheduled like heroin, no medicinal value and highly addictive and basically no redemption. And they do that because it helps them throw people in prison. And cannabis, when it gets legalized in a state, the pharmaceutical industry loses billions of dollars in that state because a lot of people use cannabis for what ails them.
I worked in hospice for a long time.
Yeah.
And cannabis, in California in particular, I was in hospice. Many of our patients who were end of life used cannabis. We use all kinds of other pharmaceuticals, Ativan, lorazepam. Like we're using other things to help temper them, right? Because there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of pain that they're going through in end of life, and many of them were raving about cannabis. It is very effective.
Yeah. And I have a friend who had a daughter that had epilepsy, and she was just spent half of her waking hours in seizures, and cannabis completely, well, not completely, but 95% cured her. So it's an important drug, and it's also a lot of fun. It's not hurting anybody.
So your magazine, like, what's the thrust of it? Are you selling to individuals? Are you telling stories? Is this like
a lot of stories and just ways for people to engage? We're going to be fashion and also recommending products, from the lotions to pre-rolls, introducing companies.
Interesting.
The whole 9 yards. A lifestyle magazine. It's just, and it's fun stuff. We've got like a walking map of Frogtown or WeHo, and introducing the cannabis lounges, all that.
Is it going to be digital? Is it a digital print, or is this going to be an actual physical magazine?
It'll be a physical magazine. Yeah. And we'll have everything will be reflected on the digital, in the digital realm as well. But it's really the printed magazine is our god here.
Give me an idea. What's the size and scope of this? Is this our first run is going to be 30 magazines printed, or
50,000 circulation?
Wow.
So far, we got about 20 advertisers. We're looking to publish August 1st. People are just over the moon.
How do you launch a magazine like this? Okay, so you have 50,000. The circulation will be 50,000. Are they paying for this magazine? Is it a free magazine? How did you even find these people?
It's a free magazine. It's advertising supported.
Okay, so it's free. How did you get the first 50,000 subscribers? Or I guess the circulation. What does that mean? It's 50,000 circulation.
Yeah, no, it's going to be delivered into the hands of people with their weed delivery, the dispensary deliveries, and a lot of other ways. Yeah, so it goes right to the consumer. It's just, and magazines are really having a resurgence now too. People are like a little sick of having their noses in their freaking iPhones 24/7.
How hard was it to get advertisers on board with the magazine? Because one, it's still illegal federally, even though it's legal there in the state of California. And so for some companies to advertise, that can get them into trouble with the federal government. We've seen companies who played in that space and then lost government contracts. And then to prove to them this is going to be the value of this magazine, because even though you're redefining what it means to be a 21st century user of cannabis, I don't know, but what are the demographics? Can you prove that, actually cannabis users on average spend X amount on these types of purchases? Was it hard to prove the monetization model? I'm just what that process was like.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Legality, there are many companies in California that are working under California law. And it's been basically decriminalized at the federal level, mostly. It's a lot of gray zone. We hope that time will end. But there are a lot of media organizations that do refuse to do cannabis advertising. And so for people that have a dispensary or a brand or a cannabis lounge, about the only medium that's available to them is outdoor. Outdoor is running their ads and letting them get to be known in the public, but no radio, no TV. A lot of print magazines won't allow it. Newspapers won't allow it because you were saying it gets into a gray zone for those people. They're not willing to risk the federal government's punishments.
Yeah, I get it, because in order to use the radio, you have to go over federally owned or regulated, I should say. Broadcasting, same with television.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Have you been in this industry a long time? What did you do before this?
Well, it's funny. I have an ad agency that I've run for 20, 30 years now, and I've smoked cannabis since I was 13. And I'm a passionate user.
And you still smoke it? You're not doing edibles? You're not doing creams or...
All of the above. Last night, I went out to a new restaurant in Silver Lake and had a tincture I put in my cocktail that was put out by Can, I think is the name of the...
What is... I don't know what a tincture is. What does that mean?
Yeah, it was a little pouch of liquid. It was a 3% THC, just a little tiny bump, and it was fun. Everyone around the table put a little in their drink, and we got a little more talkative around the table.
The restaurant liked it because you ate more. The company liked it because you were more talkative.
Yeah.
All right. It's game. Okay, so you've owned an ad agency for 20, 30 years, and this just felt like a really cool opportunity to have a passion project?
Yeah. And I'm sick of the corporate grind and making other people rich too. So I just feel we got a lot of power here. We can wield that for good. So why not?
Wow. Well, Pam, this was fascinating. I had no idea that we were going to have this conversation.
I know. Well, obviously I didn't either. All of a sudden I thought, my God, my computer is talking. Oh shit, I'm on. What's my computer saying?
That's awesome.
Pam. What is that character from?
You're like, how many edibles did I take?
No, 2001. What's the computer voice guy?
Oh, Hal.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Pam.
I don't think you'll like that. All right, Nick. Well,
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'll be following your journey.
Yeah, you're a great interviewer. How can I connect with you?
I'm on Twitter, co-founders Nick.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll look for you on Twitter.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, Pam. Good luck.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. That was so fun. I get so curious about stuff, especially stuff that I have no idea about. I've never smoked or ingested weed, cannabis, Mary Jane, whatever you want to call it, hashish. But I find it fascinating that it's still criminalized when there are many other pharmaceuticals that are not. Look at how bad of an epidemic we've had over the last 5 or 10 years just with the opioid crisis and what's been allowed and not allowed to be prescribed to people. Marijuana is definitely, they say, a gateway drug, which I do believe is true. But in terms of its efficacy and in terms of its detriment on people, there are many more legal drugs that, in my opinion, are far worse. Alcohol even is far worse in many respects. So anyways, that is so funny. Hi Mag. I was trying to be cheeky and it really was a cannabis magazine. So great. That was so awesome. All right. Well, I think we're coming up on the end of the show. I do have one last question that I had from somebody. So somebody wrote in and asked the following question. It's a short one. He said, can I 1031 exchange into a small business purchase from the equity of 2 houses I am selling? So the short answer is yes. The long answer is maybe. So for those who don't know, a 1031 exchange is the section in the Internal Revenue Services Code that allows for you to roll property that you've owned, not personal property, but commercial property, business property, without paying capital gains. So here's an example. I own an apartment complex or I own a commercial real estate development. I bought it for $100,000, and over the last 10 years, it's grown to $500,000, and I sell it for $500,000. Typically, what would happen is that $400,000 gap that you have there, you would pay capital gains on. So depending on your tax bracket, you're going to pay probably 25% of that sale price. So $400,000, you're going to pay $100,000 in taxes. Well, what the IRS allows you to do is they say, you don't have to pay those taxes right now. You can defer them for later if you elect this 1031 exchange and roll it into another asset. But it has to meet these criteria. And I'm not an expert in this, but I know it well enough that I can talk about it. The first criteria is it has to be like, or what is it called? In kind or like kind, some phrase like that, which essentially means if it was a property that was doing commercial real estate, you can't transfer it into a vehicle owned by the business. That went away with the tax legislation that was passed under Donald Trump. You used to be able to do 1031 exchanges for other assets of the business, but now it's just the real estate. Anyways, it has to be similar, right? It has to be similar in price, basis, and it has to be similar in the way that it was being used. You also can't roll a personal property into an investment. So if these were personal homes that you had and you want to now roll them into buying a business, that doesn't work. If these were rental properties that you had and you want to roll them into a business, that can work, but the business has to own real estate. So if the business doesn't own real estate, you can't 1031 exchange the sale of a property into buying a business unless it has real estate. I think there's some other nuances to it, but that's like the general overview. So yes, you can 1031 exchange into a business, but that business has to own real estate, and the real estate that it has to be similar to the real estate that you're selling. So obviously talk to a CPA, get a recommendation or an opinion from them. But the long and short is yes and maybe. So good luck with that one. Yeah, this was an awesome week. Thanks everybody for calling in. I learned a ton today. The marijuana conversation was definitely the highlight for me. And if you like this, please let me know. And if you didn't like it, please tell me to pound sand. I'd love to get any feedback. So with that, have a great week. I'll talk to you all next week, and make it a great day.